Hello and welcome to another Excel tips video. I am Sumit Bansal, and in today's video I will show you how to connect your Excel file to any PDF file and fetch the data from PDF into Excel. And this can be done using the inbuilt Power Query feature. So you do not need any paid software or any website or third-party add-in. You can do that using Power Query, which is already there in Excel. Now with Power Query, you can connect your Excel file to any PDF file and then get the data from that PDF file into Power Query. And once you have that data in Power Query, you can transform that data, get into nice tables or in whatever format you want, and then put it in Excel. So this has an added benefit because compared to any software which would simply convert your PDF into Excel and the format might be very messy and dirty, with Power Query, you can actually convert it into a better format, in a usable format, and then get the data in Excel. Another benefit of using Power Query to do this is that it automates the process. So for example, today, if I get a PDF file and I want to fetch a specific table into Excel, I can do that. And next month, if I get a newer version of that PDF file, I do not need to repeat the process. I can simply refresh my Excel and it would instantly fetch the data from that new PDF file as well. So let me take you to my computer and show you how all of this works. So let me start with a simple example where I have this PDF file where I have these airport codes and I want to get all these airport codes into Excel as a table. Now I cannot copy paste this because when you try and copy paste data from PDF into Excel, the formatting is usually messed up. See what happens when I try and copy paste it, it shows me in one single line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Power Query to connect to this PDF file and then fetch the data as a table into Excel. So I'm going to go to the data tab here, then click on the get data option. And here in from file, I'm going to click on from PDF. And when I do that, it opens the import data dialog box where I need to locate the file. So it's in my downloads folder. And here, this is the file airportcodes.pdf. And now I'm going to click on the import button. And when I do that, Power Query is now connecting to that PDF file in the backend. And here it opens this navigator dialog box where it shows me all the objects it could find in that PDF file. So it could find one table which spans across 5 pages. And these 5 individual pages. So I can use any of this data. If I click on this table, it will show me the data in that table. And if I click on these pages, it is going to show me the data in these pages. Now, because Power Query has already identified that there is this table across 5 pages in the PDF, I can just select and get this data in Excel. So I'm going to select this table. Now I can load this directly into Excel, but there are a few changes that I want to make. So I'm going to first click on transform data. When I do that, Excel is going to open this data in Power Query where I can do the transformation. So you can see this is Power Query editor where this is my query table 001 page 1 to 5. So this has taken the name from the object name itself and I can change it here. So let me call this airport codes. And now one thing I want to do is I want to promote the header. So here in the first row, I have the header. And as of now, you can see the headers actually are column 1, column 2, column 3. This is not what I want. I want this to be the header. So what I'm going to do is go to the transform tab here and then click on use first row as headers. And when I click on it, it is going to promote the first row as the header. So APC, city and name becomes the header. And I have the rest of the data in the table. Now this is fine. If you have a data set that has different types of data, in this case, all I had is textual data. But in case you have a data set that has, let's say, numbers or dates or percentages or currency, then you can make sure that you change the data type. In this case, it has already used this step called change type. So it has already identified that this is all data type. This is all text data type. But in case you have different data types, then you can make sure that either a Power Query automatically identifies it as the correct data type or you manually do it. So you can click on this icon here and you can change the data type. In this case, it has identified it correctly. So I'm going to leave it as is. Now I can go to the home tab and here I can click on close and load. Now, when I do that, the default behavior is to insert a new worksheet and then put this data as a table in the workbook. What I'm going to do is click on this option here and then click on close and load to. And when I do that, it opens the import data dialog box and shows me a couple more options. In this case, it shows me whether I want to get this data as a table in the existing worksheet or in a new worksheet. I can also insert it as a pivot table or a pivot chart, or I can only load it as a connection. I can also load this as a data model if I want. In this case, I want it as a table and I want it in the existing worksheet. So I would select this. And then now when I click OK, it is going to get the data from Power Query and bring this data as a table in Excel. So this has become very easy. Something that was not possible through copy paste is now being possible with Power Query. But let me show you one big advantage of using Power Query. So let's say I go back to the folder where I have the files, and let's say I have this new file called airport codes extra. So now I have 5 pages here, but in this file I have 6 pages. So I want this new data also to be fetched into Excel. So I don't need to repeat this Power Query steps all over again. All I can do is go back to my Power Query and change the data source and connect it to this new file instead of the older file. So what I'm going to do is come here, double click on this query. This is going to open the Power Query editor. And here in these steps that has been applied, I'm going to go to the source step and I'm going to click on this settings gear icon. And when I click on it, it opens this PDF dialog box where I can select the file path. So I'm going to click on browse option and I'm going to go to the folder that has the new file. And now I'm pointing my query towards this new file. And now when I click import and click OK, what is happening is in the backend, you can see it has added this table which is pages 1 to 6. Now in the backend, what has happened is Power Query has now connected to this new file and repeated all these steps automatically. So now if I come here and I click on close and load, you'll notice that instead of 245 rows, it is now 288 rows because now it connected to that new file, fetched the data, did all the transformation, promoted the headers and got this data here in Excel. So this is one really easy way of doing it. But as I mentioned, I showed you a very simple example where we had a continuous table. But what if I do not have a continuous table? For example, I have another file here, which is airport codes with breaks. And in this case, I have these table, but I also have pages that are not table in between. So these are blank pages, or it could be pages with any other text, which means that I have tables, but these tables are scattered in the PDF. It is not one continuous table. So how do I combine these? Let me show you how it works. Let me start by first connecting Power Query to the PDF file from which I want to fetch the data. So I'm going to go to the data tab here. Then I'm going to click on get data from file and then from PDF. This is going to open this import data dialog box. So I'm going to go and locate the file, which is this one, airport codes with breaks. And now I'm going to click on the import option. When I do that, Power Query is now going to go back to that PDF file and give me all the objects in that PDF file. So you can see here, there are 4 tables. And if you remember in the previous example, I had just one table that was spanning across 5 pages because it was a continuous table. In this case, these are tables which has blank pages or some other pages in between. So these are 4 different tables that are not connected. So I need to somehow combine these tables and then get all the data as one single table in Excel. So if I click on any of these tables, it will show me the data, and it also has all these 8 pages. Now I want to combine these 4 tables, and there are 2 ways of doing it. First is I can select these tables manually and then go into Power Query and append them so that it combines all the data. And the other method is I open all of these objects within the Power Query itself, and then I combine them in the Power Query using these object names. So let me show you both of these methods. First, I'm going to show you how to combine them by selecting these tables. So I'm going to first check this option called select multiple items. When I do that, it is going to make these checkboxes available in front of all these objects. So I'm going to select these 4 tables. And now I'm going to click on transform data. And when I do that, it is going to open each of these tables as one separate query in Power Query editor. So you can see I have now table 001, 02, 03, 04. So all these 4 tables have now become 4 separate queries. Now I can combine these queries. And to do that, I have this option in the home tab called append queries. Within the combine tab, I have this option called append queries. Now within append queries also, I have 2 options, append queries and append queries as new. If I use the first option, what it's going to do is it is going to take the first query and then combine the data from the remaining 3 queries into this query itself. So I would have table 001 that would have the combined data from all the queries. And if I use append queries as new, it is going to insert a new query, and then that new query would have the combined data from all these tables. So it is neater and it's better if I have a new query because I don't want to tamper with the original raw data. So I'm going to click on this option, append queries as new. And here it is going to ask me how many tables do you have? So in this case, because I have 4 tables, I'm going to select 3 or more tables. And then I need to put the tables here in the tables to append box. So here table 001 is already there. I'm going to select these 3 tables. So hold the shift key and then select the first one and the last one. So it selects everything in between. Then I'm going to click on the add button here and then click on OK. And now when I do that, it inserts this append one query here and then combines the data from all of these tables. You can see it shows me 249 rows. Now, one thing that I need to clean here is that there is this row, which is the header row in each table. It is being repeated every time it is combined from the table. So you can see it is there in number 1, but if I scroll down, you would see that it repeats at number 51 because this table had 50 records, and then when it combined with table 002, it started again with the header row, and then it would again repeat at I think 150, which is here. So you need to make sure that you remove these because this is the data, these are duplicate records, which I do not want. Now, I can remove it from any of these columns, but I would not try and do it from the first column, which has the airport codes, because this is APC and it might be possible that this is also an airport code. So I don't want it to remove an airport code because I've used this column as the one to remove duplicate. Similarly, city is the column where city names would repeat. So I cannot use this one, but I know that this is going to be a unique column because the airport name is going to be one single name for each airport. There cannot be two airports with the same name. So I would come here on column 3, right click, then go to remove duplicates. When I do that, it removes all the duplicate records. You can see it also records these steps here in the applied steps column. And now I can promote this as header, the first row. So I would go to the transform tab here and then click on use first row as header. And when I do that, it promotes this as header, and now I have 245 records. And now I can load this in Excel. Also note that here all the steps are being recorded, and it has the last step as changed type because Power Query tried to identify what type of data is there in each row and then set the data type accordingly. In this case, as I said, this is a very simple data set. I only have text data, but in case you have different types of data sets such as numbers or dates or time or percentage or currency, then make sure that the change type that Power Query has identified is correct. If it is not, you can remove this step and you can manually change these by clicking on these icons and then setting the data type. In this case, it is fine. So I'm going to go to the home tab here. Now, if I click on close and load at this point in time, it is going to load all these 5 queries, because whenever you create queries in one session and you load them into Excel, all these queries are loaded as tables. So if I come here and I click on close and load at this point, it is going to insert all these in separate worksheets. So I would have 5 worksheets and all these tables would be inserted, and I do not want this. I only want the append one table. So what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to create all of these as connection only queries, and then I'm going to load only append one table. So let me click on close and load to option. And here I'm going to click on only create connection and click OK. So what it's going to do is only create connection for all the 5 queries, and then I can load this one. So I right click on this one and then say load to as a table in the existing worksheet and click OK. And when I do that, it is going to load the data in this table here. So this is, as I said, one way of doing this. You select the table that you want to combine from the PDF file and then you combine them. Now, this method is good if you want to do it once in a while, but if this is something that you want to automate, for example, let's say if in the future you expect that there is going to be a new PDF file and you may have to combine tables in that PDF file, then this method has one drawback, which is that we hard coded what tables we want to combine. We manually selected table 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now in the future, if your PDF file has 6 tables, then this method may not work. So let me show you another method that would work. So let me open a new Excel file and show that to you there. Again, I would go to the data tab, click on get data from file from PDF, and I'm going to select the PDF, which is airport codes with breaks, and I'm going to click on import. This is going to open the Power Query Navigator, and here it shows me all these objects. Now, instead of selecting these tables, what I'm going to do is right click on this name, which is the name of the file, and say transform data. And when I do that, it is going to bring all these objects into Power Query where I can then play with them. So see what happens when I click on transform data here. It is going to open the Power Query editor, and it gives me all these names, all these file names here, instead of just giving me the tables or just giving me the pages or just giving me the data in those tables. So what it has done is it has created one single query with the name of the file, and it shows me all the objects, which is the page or the table. Now in this case, I only want to combine tables. I don't want to combine pages. So what I can do is I can come here and I can uncheck the page option and click OK. So it only gives me these tables. And now I do not want these. I just want to combine these tables. And you can see in each of these records in this column, the data column, I have the table. And if I click on this white space here, you can see that this cell actually holds the entire table. So this is amazing thing about Power Query is that it can hold the entire table or an entire file in just one single cell. So I do not want any other column. So I'm going to right click on this and say remove other columns. And now I'm going to combine these. So when I click on this, see what happens. It shows me this option where I can select the columns that I want to show in the combined data. So I want all these columns, but I do not want the original column name as prefix. So now I can click on OK. And now when I do that, it has combined all this data here for me. And now I can make the changes. So I don't know if there are duplicates or not. Let me check. And I can see that, yeah, there are duplicates. So first thing I would do is I would remove duplicates. So I would come here and I would say remove duplicates. Then I'm going to promote the first row as header. So I go to transform and then use first row as header. And now I have the right data. You can see in the status bar, I have 245 rows, which is the same as the previous method. And now I can load this into Excel. So I would go to home, close and load to. And here I've selected table and then I would say existing worksheet and click OK, and it instantly loads the data here. Now, one benefit of this over selecting the tables manually is that in this case, let me open the Power Query here. In this case, I had the source file and I only selected the tables from it, which means that in future, if my PDF file changes and it has, let's say 6 tables or 10 tables or 100 tables, this method would still work. It would still combine those files. But if you compare it with the previous method where we manually selected the tables, it is not going to work if your tables increase. But this method is foolproof. It is going to work in all the cases. So if it's once in a while situation, you can use any of the methods. But if you want to automate this process, then it is better that you use this method. Now, let me show you how to combine multiple PDFs that are there in a folder. Here I have this folder called codes that has these 6 PDF files that I want to combine. So let me go to Excel, and what I'm going to do is connect Power Query to the folder and then combine all the files in that folder. So I'm going to go to the data tab here, then click on get data from file. And this time instead of from PDF, I'm going to select from folder and then select the folder that has the file. So I'd go to this folder called codes that has the PDF files, and now I'm going to click on open. And when I do that, it is going to connect to that folder and give me the details of all the files in the folder. As of now, I only have 6 PDF files that I want to combine. So let me click on transform data. And this is now going to show these file informations in Power Query editor. So it has added this query called codes, and it has all these records, one record for each file. Now, in this case, it's fine because I just have these 6 PDF files and these are all the files that I want to combine. But what if you want to automate the process for future, but there is also a possibility that there could be files with different extension in this folder, for example, such as Excel files or Word files or PowerPoint files or any other file. In that case, you want to future-proof your Power Query in such a way that it is only going to combine the files that you want, even if there are more files. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this column here, because in case, let's say there are different types of files, those would show up here. But because I only want to combine PDF files, I'm going to filter this here. So I would click on this, go to text filter and say equals .pdf. And when I do that, it inserts this new step here. Although it doesn't change anything here, but it has actually added a step where if you have any other extension file here, it would be removed and it would only show you the PDF files. Similarly, let's say if you have other PDF files that you do not want to combine, you only want to combine files that have airport codes in the beginning of the name, then you can further future-proof this by filtering this as well. So I would go to text filter, begins with, and then I would say airport codes. And now when I click OK, again, doesn't change anything here, but we are future proofing it in such a way that in case there are more files which are PDF files or non-PDF files, it would not impact our query in the future. Now I'm going to come here, and in the content column, you have these binary cells. And if I click on the white space here, you would see that each of these cells holds the individual file that I want to combine. So binary refers to a file type, and within each of these, it has the file airport codes 1 and 2 and 3 and so on. So I only want this column. I do not want these other columns. So I would come here, right click, and then click on remove other columns. Now I'm going to click on this combine files option. And when I do that, it is going to combine all the files that are there in this column, which are these 6 PDF files. So see what happens when I click on this. It is going to do the magic in the backend. And now it opens this combine files dialog box. Now what it's asking me is, it's not going to ask me this for each file. It just picks up the first file and asks me, what do you want to combine? Because as of now, it doesn't know. It asks me whether you want to combine the table or the page. So I'm going to select table 1, and it only picks up this from the first file here. So if I click on this, you can see it says first file, and then it says airport codes 1.pdf. It's very hard to read because it's in gray color, but you can see in the tooltip, it says airport codes 1.pdf, which means that it is going to now take table 1 from this file and then go to each file and then pick up the table and combine them. So now when I click OK, it does the work where it has this query codes, which was my original query, and now it has combined all these steps. You can see it has recorded all these steps here. But at the same time, you would also notice that something else happens. It inserts these additional queries here. So you can see there are these 3 helper queries and this transform sample file query. Now this is something that is going to happen automatically in Power Query whenever you are combining files, whether these are PDF files or Excel files or any kind of file. Now this is something that you do not have to worry about. Power Query takes care of everything in the backend. You only have to think of this query codes which has the data. But in case you do want to understand how this is working, let me know in the comment section, and I can create a detailed video where I'll explain how each of these things work and what is happening in the backend. Now, I want to just get this data. So I'm going to just work on this query, which is codes. And again, the same thing here, I would have to remove duplicates and then I have to promote headers. So I would come here to column 3, right click, and then click on remove duplicates. Then I would go to the transform tab, use first row as headers. If you want to change data type of any of the columns, you can do it manually. And then I would load this back into Excel. So I would go to the home tab here, close and load to. And here I would say I want a table in the existing worksheet. And when I click OK, it is going to load it. Now, one thing to know is that it is not going to load any of the helper queries that were created. Although they were created in the same session, these helper queries that are created when it's trying to combine files are not going to be loaded. They are only loaded as connection. It is only going to load your main query. So now we have everything in the backend. Now, if I go back into that folder and I remove a file, let's say I remove this file, airport code 6, and I just want to combine these 5 files, I can just come here, right click, then click on refresh, and this is going to go back, connect to the folder and combine the files. So this is now a process that we have automated. You can add more files to the folder. You can remove files whenever next month, next week, you get new files, you put it in the folder, and then you just simply refresh the query. So it is going to go back to the folder, connect to all those files and combine the data. So this is something that can save you a lot of time. Now, so far I have shown you example where the data was very neatly organized within the PDF file itself, but in most cases that is not going to be the case. So let me show you an example where I have this file here. This is the data. This is the file of Spotify that I got from their website, and I want to get this data from this PDF file. Now you can see this is not very clean. There is this text here. It is also not very consistent. So how can we do this using Power Query? So let me show you how this can be done. So the first thing again I would do is I would connect to the PDF file. So I'm going to go to the data tab here, click on get data from file from PDF. Then I'm going to select the PDF file, which is this file here, Spotify Q3 2023. And now when I click on import, Power Query is connecting to that file, and then it is going to show me all the objects it can find in that PDF file. So it opens the navigator dialog box, and here you can see it finds all these tables and all these pages in this PDF file. Now, I have a specific need to extract this table here. So I can identify which table is this, which I already know is table 002 on page 3. So this is the third page, and this is the table on page 3 that I want to extract. Now, although you may think that this looks like a proper table, when Power Query is looking at this data, it's actually not looking this as proper table. It's also considering this as part of the table. So this is something that I would have to clean. But the first step is that I need to identify what table I want to extract, which is this one. So let me click on transform data button so that this opens in Power Query and where I can clean this data. So the first thing I want to do is I want to remove this column. So I would select this, right click, and then click on remove. And this is my data. This looks better now because this is now only data here in this table. Now this is my header row. So I would promote this one here, which is the first one. So I would go to the transform tab here and then click on use first row as header. Then I have these blank rows that I do not want. So I can come here and then I can uncheck null and click OK. And now my data is in a pretty good shape. You would also notice that all these steps are being recorded here on the right in this applied steps field. One thing I want to mention here is about the data type. Now in this case, Power Query has identified that my data type is of text data type because I have null, I have numbers, I have percentages, I have these negative percentages, and I also have these dashes. So Power Query identified that there is no one single data type here and it can be only classified as text. So it has put it as text data type, and this is the case for all of these. Now, if you specifically want a data type in this case, you can work with it, but because there is a mix of data in this case, I do not want to change any of this. All I really want is to get this data into Excel. So I'm going to leave the data type as is. But one thing I would want to show you is the change type step. In the change type step, one problem that you would often see is that it hard codes these values. So in this case, it has hard coded the column name, user, and financial summary, and then it has hard coded Q3 2022. Now, if I'm trying to automate my work and in future I want to use the same query to fetch data from some other file, it is going to give me an error because I've hard coded these values. So you need to be cautious about this. In this case, let me keep it and let me show you the next time when I connect it to some other file. I'll show you how this causes a problem. But in this case, let me keep it. But in most cases, it is a good idea to remove change type step if you do not want it. So I can rename this query. Let me call this Spotify data. And now I can go to home, close and load to, and I can load it as a table in the existing worksheet. So now when I click OK, it loads this query called Spotify data and gives me the data. So now this in itself is quite amazing because I have this file here, and if I had copy pasted it, it would have given me the data in a really horrible format. But using Power Query, I was able to connect to it, identify a specific table, remove all the garbage stuff, and get the data in a nicely formatted table. Now, while this is good, let's say I have another file that I want to now connect this query to and fetch the data from it. So as of now, I have fetched the data from Spotify Q3, but now I want to fetch the data from Spotify Q4. So I'm going to go back to my query and change the source. And this is where the magic is going to happen. So I'm going to go to this step called source, click on this gear icon, and then change the file path. So I would click on browse, and now I'm going to select the new file from which I want to fetch the data, which is Spotify Q4, and click on import. And now when I click on OK, it is going to connect to that file and fetch the data from there. But as I mentioned, there is going to be a problem here. If I go to the last step, you see there is this error, and this error is because of the change type step. If I click on go to error, it is going to take me to change type, which is actually causing the error. And the error here is because it hard coded the value Q3 2022. But when I connected it to the new file, it did not have this column. So I would have to remove this step and make sure that there are no hard coded values. As I said, I can easily remove change type step. It's not very useful. So now when I remove it, you'll see that my data works perfectly. And now I can load this in Excel. So because I've already loaded this in Excel, I can just come here and I can click on close and load. And you'll see that it connects to that file now, and it now loads the new data, which is for Q4 2023. So this is again quite wonderful. You can connect to any PDF file and try and clean the data as much as possible. As I mentioned, getting data from PDF is in itself very, very difficult, but Power Query makes it easier because it allows you to transform that data in Power Query itself and then load this data. And it also then allows you to connect to any other file, and you do not have to repeat the process. You can simply refresh the query. So this is how you can use Power Query to quickly fetch the data from PDF files or combine multiple different files in a folder. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Also, if you're liking these videos, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on the bell icon so that you never miss out on any new Excel tips video I come up with. Thank you and have a nice day.